What is intuition?
The way that I characterize it, it's what you sense, what you feel. It's like an inner knowing.
Mm,
What do you feel? And I'll, depending upon who it is, I'll say gut or instinct.
okay.
But what I'm really doing is saying, I want you to tune into what intuitively do you feel is the next right move? Sometimes it's pausing, doing nothing. And that's actually how I know that we're in the deepness of the conversation, is if I can get someone to pause and sit with it, there is a much greater capacity for more information to come to you versus the speed in the transaction, which is often really what the business world is dictating.
Welcome to the Warriors at Work show. This is Jeanie Coomber, your guide and host. This is a show for men and women in the workplace who want to move from the predictable to the potent. This is your weekly dose of inspiration with an edge. I talk with CEOs and shamans, sports marketing executives and therapists. All of us are like-minded thinkers and doers who tell stories, share wisdom, and challenge each other to have the best life possible inside and outside the office. Welcome to your Warrior Conversation. Hey everybody, it's Jeanie. Welcome to Warriors at Work. I am your guide and host, and today I bring to you a very special episode. In February of 2025, I am celebrating 20 wild years as the owner of an executive coaching business called Transition Enterprises, and me being front and center of that business as an executive coach. And over the past 2 decades, I've had the honor and privilege of working with some of the most talented and inspirational leaders around the globe. And I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. And I was really trying to figure out what was the best way to celebrate this 20 years. And my beautiful friend and confidant and colleague, Fiz Olajide, said, well, how about we turn the tables and we make this look and feel like a coaching session, and I'll interview you. And so I said yes. And Fiz is not only a dear friend, she is also the director of brand design for X. She is a wildly talented filmmaker, creative executive. She has created documentaries that have earned acclaim at prestigious festivals like SXSW, Doc NYC, and the New York Film Festival. She's actually currently directing Underground Railroad Ride, a feature-length documentary exploring the themes of racial justice, endurance, and personal transformation, set to come out in the fall of this year. And I did not know what she was going to ask me in this coaching session, but I trusted her. She knows enough about me, my story, and knows that I'm in service to something bigger than myself. So together we reflect on the lessons learned, painful and triumphant moments. And I also share some of my favorite stories and key takeaways from 20 years of helping leaders like you move from the predictable to the potent. I really put this episode out for everyone who has shared this ride with me, and for those of you who I don't know yet. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me into your lives and for creating a space like this where I can share my story. Enjoy.
Okay, I am so excited to turn the tables today and interview Jeanie Coomber, someone who's usually in the host seat asking the big questions. Jeanie is a powerhouse in creating thought-provoking media for working professionals and was named one of NJ's Biz Best 50 Women in Business with certifications from Corporate Coach U, the International Coaching Federation, and the Neuro Leadership Institute, plus a background in Columbia Business School's personal leadership program. She brings a wealth of knowledge to everything she does. Jeanie's career began as a world-class executive coach, helping leaders unlock their potential and become warriors in their own right. Through her podcast, Warriors at Work, she's built a space for people to tap into their inner wisdom, explore bold choices, and unleash their best selves. Today, it's my privilege to flip the script and dive into Jeanie's own story, her insights, her vision, and her relentless drive to inspire others. let's get started.
Oh, Fiz, it's so weird to hear yourself be introduced, especially on such an important time period in my life. 20 years is it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jeanie, I want to start with a bit of self-discovery. There's a lot of people that know you, that have worked with you, and that, know a piece of Jeanie. But I want to just start at the very beginning with your origin story. Who were you before you created Warriors at Work, and what shaped you?
So, who was I before I before I really started coaching? Because Warriors at Work came later.
Mhm.
So I was working in financial services and in a servicing account management role, and I played by the book. I always had a big personality. I was told I was intense quite a bit. Very, very impatient, all about process, drive, um, making sharp decisions, moving quickly. I was all about speed, and that got in my way a lot. Speed and efficiency, less about being effective. And always had like a big heart, always tried to bring this big heart and nurturing self to the office, but I screwed it up quite a bit, both in peer dynamics, running teams, challenges with clients. But, I'm always somebody that I really do try to do my best, and I'm okay with it not coming out perfect. And so I was really that little bit of a hot mess, I guess you could say. Like when I decided to leave corporate America, it was not what I see now 20 years later. But it was brought about. I was basically getting certified while I was still working in corporate America. I was talking with my mom, who was a licensed clinical social worker, and she was like, "You know what? Go back, get your master's degree. Why are you doing this coaching thing? Go back, get your master's degree in social work, and you can be an LCSW, which means licensed clinical social worker like me." She was a psychotherapist in private practice. And I was like, I just don't think that was for me. I said, Mom, this coaching thing's very cool because it's about meeting people where they are and then progressing them towards whatever their goals,
Right.
aspirations are. And I felt therapy's more about, looking over your shoulder around, how did I get here? Where did this come from? And doing some of that work. And I didn't really get the connection of really how the two go hand in hand, which we'll get into later. So I pursued the coaching thing, got pregnant, was on maternity leave. My mom and I were talking about going into business together. I'd be the coaching arm, she'd be the therapeutic arm. And she passed away suddenly. She had a massive heart attack when my daughter was 10 weeks old. And you go through something like that, it changes everything. I felt like somebody shot me. I was completely half. I was really, really distraught and sad. But I had this beautiful baby that I had to get up for every day and, put one foot in front of the other. And I ended up going back to my job after my maternity leave. But I was very honest with my boss. I kind of told him what I was considering.
You went back to your corporate job.
I did. I went back to my corporate job and I said, I'm just going to investigate this coaching thing. I'll take a little bit of time and see what's what. And I pretty much stuck to my timeline and did a lot of research. I interviewed lots of coaches because it was not well known. You're talking, this is 2000, end of 2004, early 2005. It was not well known in the US. It was very well known outside the US, Canada, and Europe predominantly. And the more I started interviewing, the more I was like, okay. And those coaches who I talked to kind of helped me hone it to say, you want to do the corporate coaching route, you're going to want to do this. And so I ended up leaving February of 2005. And I didn't really have a whole lot planned other than a big fat dream. I originally started off saying I really want to help college kids acclimate to the workplace. So I went into private practice actually with my mom's best friend who was a therapist. And I thought, well, let me try this dream on. It was a great friendship, great partnership. She was so wonderful, so good to me. But I did not enjoy the private coaching because what ended up happening is a lot of parents were hiring me to get their children jobs, which was not what I was looking for was more around the personal development piece, but I did it for about a year or so. And then I found my way back into the corporate space with an executive development program where I was doing facilitation and which I didn't actually know what the heck facilitation meant. I actually looked it up. I was like, I know how to run meetings, don't know what facilitation is. And that was a transformative decision because I was exposed to all of these women in these executive development programs. And I was one of them when I was in financial services. And I know we're going to get into mentoring and all of that later on, but that was a really pivotal decision to become affiliated with them, do the work for them. It really opened up my mind to the development discussion and really what the true viability was of coaching and how applicable it was to the corporate space and it was in these development programs. So it was a pivotal moment.
Wow. What were some of the first practices or philosophies that really resonated with you when you started coaching?
Process, repeatable behaviors. And I took all of my business knowledge on running teams and dealing with clients and customers is do what you say always. If you're going to promise something, you got to follow it up. And that was probably the number one thing. Always do what you say and say what you mean. Then the second thing is be kind to your network. Bring that generous spirit to others and make sure you're acknowledging how your network and your systems are supporting you. And that's very much philosophy that I've pulled forward to today. And the other it's just simple, was like, to me, it was just hard work. I'm not the smartest kid on the block. I've struggled in academia for most of my life. I worked really hard for B's, but I really have a lot of drive. I can outwork a lot of people, and I'm relentless when I have a goal or a focus. Nothing will stop me. Lots of people thought I was crazy to do this. Lots of people thought, "What are you doing leaving corporate America? What are you doing? That's so stupid. We're going to move you to New York, and you're now going to have a 2-hour commute. It's going to be way better than you doing this thing on your own." And then, when you're starting, it was an uncharted field. So people were like, "What is that? Why would you do that?"
What did your husband think when you told him?
Well, he knew that I was complete in corporate America. I had done all I wanted to do. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't care about mutual funds. I really had a knack for helping people identify what are my skills and attributes, and then how do we position you for things that maximize on that. So he knew that I wasn't in my zone of genius. I was like in my zone of competence. For anybody that has ever read The Big Leap, one of my favorite books, I was in my zone of competence. It was these behaviors that everybody knew and were familiar with, but I wasn't killing it. I wasn't enjoying it. And then when I had a newborn and I had to do this crazy commute, it amplified it for me. He knew I needed to get out, but it was hard. I'm not going to lie. That first year and a half, I didn't make any money. I put every dime right back into the business. And there was quite a few conversations where he was like, "What are you doing? Do you realize like we have to steal from Paul to pay Peter? We have like $100 in our account. Like, why are you doing this?" And I was like, "I know my capabilities." And there was this one conversation I had with him. I had come back. It was a year out, and I had come back from some networking. Which I'm a huge fan of and believer in relationship building. It's the life force for an entrepreneur. I had come back and I said, I really hope this starts to pay dividends, because I'm spending a lot on business development and I'm not seeing the return on that. And then that following year, everything shifted. It was like all of the seeds that I had planted really started to turn into some really amazing opportunities.
So that was over the course of like a year, 18 months that you just...
Yeah, it was about a year and a half of real struggle. And then again, some things started to shift. And then when I got involved in the executive development program, my mind was open to lots and lots of things, but it took time. And it's why a lot of people give up. It's really hard. And it's just you're selling you, and I was selling something that was unheard of. It was not well known. And people were like, "Wait, what do you do? How does that work? What do you stand on the side of a meeting and just jump up and down and cheer someone on?" I'm like, "No, Well, that's a little bit of it, but I
So
was a lot
how
of
did you actually find your first clients?
It was through I did a ton of networking. When you first start a
Okay.
business, you join everything. You say
Yeah.
yes to everything. And everybody as soon as they see a doer, they want you on their board and they want you running committees. No offense to anybody who's listening or watching that runs networking events or groups. And it was just through different networking. I got connected with various people, which one of the biggest programs I did when I first started was with the Girl Scouts of America. It was a leadership program for high school students. It was such a cool experience. I got to do lots of mentoring, met some incredible people. And so that was the beginning of a lot of, sharpening our skills, trying to figure out what was what. And that was very into collaboration. I had other people with me, no employees, but collaborations, which again is a philosophy I've brought forward.
Okay, that makes sense. So how would you describe the Jeanie Kuma brand? Like what it stands for? Has your vision, or how has your vision evolved over the years?
That is probably one of the hardest questions for me to answer because I feel like I'm a work in progress. I'm certainly not finished.
Mm.
There's scaffolding around me at all times. My brand has always been honest, straightforward, direct. I have a good blend. And I think the nicest thing someone said to me is, you're a great blend of soft and hard. And you're compassionately confrontational.
Oh,
And
okay.
when I first heard that one, I was like, ooh. Like an insult.
Like, is that a bit of shade or is that a compliment?
But it's honest. And I think how
Yeah.
I've crafted it over the years, and obviously I have to do branding quite a bit. And what I'll say is this is, so like if we were interviewing me for a coaching gig, the way I typically say it is like, well, you're talking to somebody that's been in the business for 20 years. And I got into coaching before it was a sexy thing.
Mm.
And I got into it because I always had a knack for helping people identify skills and attributes that make them extraordinary in the world. And so I take that skill and I combine it with a deep intuitive knowing and understanding. And I believe that you're much more than your thinking mind. I believe that if you can combine your intellect with your intuition, your capacity for growth, development, and expansion is 10 times what it is if you're only relying upon your thinking mind. So you're talking to somebody that's going to help you combine those two and bring that type of magic to what you're doing on a daily basis.
This is good. I feel like I know from, being around you for years and just speaking with you and having you kind of coach groups that I've been in. But what is intuition? Can you explain that for somebody that just doesn't really know, that's very corporate, that's in the corporate world, that goes by the book, that has studied, that have achieved, that have gotten promotions? What is intuition?
The way that I characterize it, it's what you sense, what you feel. It's like an inner knowing.
Mm.
And the quickest way into it is sitting here with you right now. I would ask you to just, when we're talking about a particular subject, maybe you're struggling with a decision you have to make. The very first thing I'm going to ask you is like, well, tell me in your body where you're feeling stuck. When there's energy block. So if I can get you to tune into your body, that is getting you out of your thinking mind. So it's like the fastest way. So you get into your body starts to tell you, am I pulling left? Am I pulling right? Am I feeling contraction or a constriction in my stomach, in my shoulders? Women, we feel it a lot in our shoulders, our neck, our arms. And then I'll say, all right, so now let's go back to that decision that we're talking about.
Right.
Tell me where you're feeling energy blocked or constriction. And then what do you feel and I'll, depending upon who it is, I'll say gut or instinct. But what I'm really doing is saying, I want you to tune into what intuitively do you feel is the next right move? Sometimes it's pausing, doing nothing. And that's actually how I know that we're in the deepness of the conversation, is if I can get someone to pause and sit with it, there is a much greater capacity for more information to come to you versus the speed and the transaction, which is often really what the business world is dictating, is like
Right.
faster, more efficient, more powerful, more profitability, more revenue growth. That's speed, scale.
Mm.
There's nothing wrong with that, but if the individuals are the ones that are driving all of that, we've got to create more space to bring in the unseen. And that's really what intuition is. If you're very in tune with your unseen, you have more optionality. You're more thoughtful in how you make decisions. When you don't have access to it, you rely very much on your intellectual horsepower to drive everything. So ultimately what I'm doing is creating more pause, more time to pick in and get a sense of what else is going on here that I need to tune into. But getting into the body and the breath is the fastest way in.
Oh, I love that. And I'm going to dig into more of that, because I think it's a very interesting take in your style of coaching, and not a lot of people are even able to kind of get there because it feels too woo-woo.
Right.
And so, but before we get there, what I would love to just kind of, looking back on your early years, were there moments where self-doubt crept in, outside of the voices that you heard of people telling you like, this is crazy, what are you doing, you should be in the corporate world, that's where the check is at, and how did you navigate those self-doubt moments?
I have so many self-doubt, fall on my face moments. I was thinking about that because I had a sense you were going to ask me that. There's literally so many that I couldn't even count. But what I noticed is that the more I might make a mistake or misstep or make the wrong judgment call, and it had some sort of feedback, or somebody would say something to me like, that didn't land. And I've had people say like, that didn't land. I didn't get anything from that. I think you made a mistake. I don't like how you did that. And it hurts when you first hear it. And it's really, it's a little scary. Like you want to run away, but the more it happened over time, the more resilient I got. I would notice, the first time it happened, I beat myself up for 5 days. And the next time it happened, I beat myself up for 3 days. And there, sometimes depending upon how big it is, it can hang around a little longer. But I noticed that my bounce back got a little better and a little stronger. And to me, it became like a data point. Oh, that didn't land. It doesn't define me. It's just a data point. The moment in time that I can reflect on if ever I'm in that situation, or if ever that behavior starts to show up again, or maybe that person has similar attributes of somebody who said something negative to me before, I just look at it as like, oh, okay, I got that. Heard it, felt it. What could I do differently next time? And that's how I look at it. And look, we've all got insecurities, all of us. We all have those moments where we're like, what the hell are we doing right now? And am I the right person? But if I can bring forward some of the things that I teach and guide others to do, like tune in, what are you sensing? What are you feeling? Are you in your ego? Are you trying to drive to something that is not aligned? If I can tune into more of that, I can learn from those setbacks and have less doubt and start to see, well, what if I can do it? What if I am okay? What if it's not perfect? Which, I still struggle with too. But if I can get focused on what's in my best interest, what's in the client's best interest, what's for everyone's best and highest, like if I can tune into that, things start to reveal themselves in a much more powerful way. And it isn't about me anymore. It's about what's the best for everyone.
Right. So in 2018, you almost quit, right? What happened during that time, and how did you find the strength to move forward?
Yeah. So, business was, thankfully it's always going well. And that was a particularly powerful year. I was rocking and rolling. I was skinning to the point where I was having to refer a lot of client work out. And I said yes to 2 particular coaching engagements, both of which my ego made the decision. And the first one was like a fix it. this guy has got this wrong. He really needs this. He's got to develop more connection, more relationship skills, and his communication skills are terrible. So I went in thinking, I'm going to change this guy. He's going to be amazed by me. It was the most frustrating, unsatisfying. It was horrible from start to finish. And I would always come home. And of course, it was time I was having to do a lot of in person. I was just come home exhausted. And I was also working with somebody else in another city. And it was a similar situation. I said yes, because my ego told me to. And I felt obligated to the person who asked me. And so I had these two really, really difficult clients that just sucked the life out of me. And it was because it wasn't aligned with what I really wanted, the type of client I really knew I could have success with. I should have said no to both and referred them out, and because they would have been much better off with a different coach than Jeanie. And so I went through this period, and I came home. I had to see both of them in 1 week. And I said to Ross, I said, I don't think I can do this anymore. I feel like I'm complete now. And he was like, what's going on? I'm like, I just don't feel happy or satisfied. I don't think I'm offering any value. And maybe it's time for me to shift. Maybe it's time for me to step away from this. Maybe there's something else I should be considering. And I went through that contemplation for a couple of months. And then I did what, and all business owners know this, is like every year you have to shift a couple of things. Not like massive shifts, but you have to shift some things. And so I sat with the pain and I just couldn't stand being around these two individuals, but I sat with it and I was like, what is here for me? What do I have to learn? And I decided to start playing with this idea of doing interviewing, hosting smaller dinners, getting into different types of community, and do the things that light me up, do the things that I feel are in service to other people. And then that shifted. And both of those clients went away. And it made me smarter in my choice now. When I'm being interviewed for coaching engagements, I ask a lot more questions around, give me the profile of the client. What do you see as success? And I check myself when I'm being interviewed. It's like, could I really spend time with this person? And so I was doing all the things outside that were just starting to light me up. It really made me smarter on different coaching engagements. And and I just took that wisdom and again made a couple of shifts, which have led to so many amazing things.
So people watching this like, oh my gosh, Jeanie sounds amazing. She sounds incredible. I would love to have Jeanie be my coach. What are some of the things that you would see, to your point of when you're being interviewed for an engagement, that you're like, this doesn't align with what I want to do? Like, what are some of the things that you look for that are red flags, essentially?
Okay. So the first thing is why a coach and why now? The second thing is, tell me what this person is doing in terms of growth, development, personal, professional. Where do you as the organization see this person evolving or sending into? Like, I want to hear the growth path. And then I also always ask, do they want an executive coach? I'm not somebody who gets deployed. Again, I've made the mistake of taking some of those assignments, mostly because my ego would tell me, it's going to be great. That's not that kind of coaching. That's not me at my best. I would refer that I've got some coaches who love that kind of work. That is not me. But that came from making bad choices and getting aligned with the wrong clients. So those would be typically the red flags I would listen for.
So over these wonderful up and down 20 years, do any stories come to mind that you can think about, people that you've coached and worked with that have had incredible transformations? So something that you started with that had something that they needed you for, and kind of, if you could walk me through the journey of how you worked with them and what that looked at the end of your engagement, just any incredible transformation stories.
So transformation is a very personal word. so you could look on the outside. So if we stayed in the thinking mind, you could look at promotion, you could look at additional areas that they acquired as a result. But when I think of transformation, the people that stand out in my mind, and it's male and female.
Okay.
I'm smiling because a transformational behavior for me is when I was interviewed. I started working with this incredible guy. He was just humble and smart and so powerful, but he was very guarded, very, very guarded with me. And so I had to do a lot of things to get him to open up and trust me. And we eventually did. We got there, and he was very careful to not reveal too much about his personal story and his own vulnerabilities, but also his leadership journey. He had a particular approach to that. And I saw him out on LinkedIn getting interviewed for different things, and I saw him posting different snippets from it. It brought me such joy that he got to see, wait a minute, the more I reveal and share my own vulnerabilities, the more people, it will help other people. It isn't about me saying too much about myself. It's like, but this actually helps other people. This gives other people permission. And that was a direct connection to what the work he and I did together, is slowly getting to open up and trust himself and trust the world around him in a way that not only are you getting some healing from this, but you're helping so many people step forward to this. And he later thanked me for it. And that was probably one of the proudest things. It was hard work too, because I have to be very careful. Sometimes you have to walk a fine line.
Right.
And not everybody's like guns blazing, let's do this. Some people are more like, okay, I'm a little skeptical, but I know I want to do this, but I'm not really sure what it looks like. And then some other success stories on the transformation side is, I work a lot with high efficiency structural people, engineers, finance, C-suite leaders that have built a career and a system that works for them in their own success. And so to get those people to use words like instinct, intuition, what am I sensing, my feeling, even just talking about the word feeling in a conversation and hearing that it's making them smarter, more engaged as leaders, that's transformation too.
That's awesome. So over the past 20 years, what have been the biggest trials and triumphs for you as a coach? I mean, obviously the triumphs you pretty much just spoke about, but I'm curious about some of the trials that you've overcome. I'm immediately, the first thing I'm thinking about is I met you in 2019, and then everything shifted a year later. So I don't know if you would count that as a business owner, as one of your biggest trials.
Well, the biggest trial, well, there's a bunch, but there's two that really come to mind. One was the decision in early 2020 to rebrand, so to take Jeanie and start to shift it, and then move more into this interviewing space, which was the creation of the Warriors at Work platform. But in the early days of COVID, when the world was shutting down, nobody's hiring an executive coach. And so I had a lot of contracts canceled, all of my travel canceled. So here it was March.
Yeah.
We're anticipating a certain financial return at the end of the year. And all of that blew up in my face. And that was terrifying because my husband's also, he's a sports chiropractor. So we're both business owners. Had a sophomore in high school, was going to be going to get college in a couple of years. My other daughter was in grammar school. And so, you're thinking about future. And so I use the fear to create something. And that's often what I'll do is when I feel sad or down or lonely or insecure, is I just try to help other people. And that energy starts to be really powerful for me. And I know we're going to get into some of the stuff around Warriors at Work, but I channeled that fear and not enough and the lack into, okay, this is going to help people. How do I help people? And when you help people, positive things come to you, right? And so that's what I did. And the other thing the biggest trial that I think I had to go through. It's beyond death of my mom suddenly, my death of my dad unexpectedly in 2016, is my husband had a medical emergency that was really insane. And I ended up catching some things that they didn't catch. And what ended up happening is, he was during his recovery from that surgery and that medical issue, I developed a horrible situation where I would have panic, basically panic episodes, but I had panic disorder, and I was getting panic attacks 2 or 3 times a day. And sometimes they'd last half hour, 45 minutes. The longest sometimes would be an hour. And it's hard to be in a space where I'm listening and creating space for other people, where my whole body is revolting and telling me you're having a heart attack. And that's something else to be scared of. And then you have to be scared of this. So I was frightened of everything. And I struggled with it for quite a few months. I took myself up to Kripalu for 3 days. I have a dear friend who worked there and helped me to see that there was a program called Rest and Renew, where you could stay in silence, you could hike, you could do yoga, whatever you needed to do. But that was like an immediate oxygen mask to calm my system down. I had a friend who saw this pattern, who called me out on it and said, you need to stop right now. You need to go take care of yourself. And I'll forever be grateful to Carrie for being that voice of reason. And she got harsh with me, like, stop this.
And you'd never had any of these type of episodes before?
I mean, really mildly. I had one when I knew I needed to get out of a business arrangement I was in. I was wildly unhappy, and your body doesn't lie. It'll start to show you imbalances, but this was so pronounced. I was so filled with fear and anxiety because I was so disappointed by the lack of medical care that I saw. There was I didn't trust the system, so I had to become this huge advocate. And what do I know? What do I know about navigating that kind of thing? I was so disappointed. But they saved his life, and so that's what I had to get back to. And I had to do a lot of therapy. I did shamanic work. I did Reiki with hypnotherapy. You name it, I tried it. And the best remedy for me, and to this day, whenever I get anxious, I take L-theanine. I contemplated everything from ayahuasca retreats to other substances, anything to calm me down. That was the hardest thing because my kids saw it and never knew when it was going to come on. And it lasted on and off for about 6 months. I was able to manage it after 3. But now when I look back on it, again, like all difficulties, there's some lessons in it. It was my need to control, my need to manage, and I had a deep rooted fear of death. And when you trying to control your mortality, when you're going through something like that, it's all you think about is like, that could have been me, and what about me, and will I be taken care of? And that was
How are you today, would you say? How are you now?
I don't have them anymore. I have lots of tools in my toolkits when I feel triggered or anxious or worried. I have a lot of tools that I implement so that it doesn't get to that point. Just a simple technique of tapping, collarbone, literally tapping. It's a Tai Chi technique.
Yeah, you taught me that, I think.
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Tapping, any breathing exercises, and you never want to push through a panic episode. Like, you don't push through it. You deal with it, you manage it. And now I talk about them openly, and I couldn't believe how many people suffered from this. And that's something new. Jeanie, the older Jeanie that started a business 20 years ago, never would have been that vulnerable and honest, but it was really, really hard. And obviously some other things have happened in my life that could have triggered those episodes again. But because I had so many tools in my toolkits, I know what it is. I know how it's coming on. And I've been able to use it to help other people.
I love that.
We need more storytelling. We need more. I say this expression, this is maybe the best way to leave it, is like, We have to reveal ourselves if we want to heal. And revealing is not reckless. I'm not saying go out and tell everybody all your deepest, darkest secrets, but start somewhere where you're willing to reveal. And that was really the genesis of this. It's like, if I'm asking you to do it, I got to do it too. And there is an interesting story. There's an arc of a person that's evolved. And if this evolutionary story can help someone else, I'm all for it, because that's what I'm here to offer. And so let's reveal to heal.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Warriors at Work show. If you are interested in learning more about what we do at the Warriors at Work show and platform, be sure to go over to my website, Jeanie Coomber, and subscribe to my monthly Warrior Playbook newsletter. I share everything that I'm up to month by month, as well as some lessons and insights that I've learned. I'm also interested in hearing any feedback you have about this conversation or future topics. So reach out to me directly on jc@jeanniecoomber.com or on LinkedIn. Be sure to tell your friends and your colleagues about this Warriors at Work conversation. Subscribe, review, and rate us. It's the best way to get this message out into the world. Be well.